How well can an AI start a story? Prompt: write the beginning of a fantasy story. Once upon a time, in a far-off kingdom, there lived a brave young warrior by the name of Alana. She had been born into a noble family and had been trained in the ways of the sword since she was a child. Alana was the only daughter of her family, and she was determined to prove her worth to her father and the kingdom. One day, while traveling through the forest on a quest to prove her worth, Alana stumbled upon a mysterious old man. He was wearing a long, dark cloak and had a strange glint in his eye. He told her that he was an ancient wizard, and that he had come to give her a special gift. Prompt: write the beginning of a sci-fi story. The stars twinkled in the night sky as the sleek ship descended onto the unknown planet. Captain Carla and her crew had been searching for a new home for months, and their mission was finally coming to an end. As the ship touched down, a sense of anticipation and excitement filled the air. Little did they know that the planet they had landed on was not uninhabited. It was teeming with mysterious creatures and ancient technology, and it was up to Carla and her crew to uncover the truth behind them. As they prepared to disembark, they knew that their journey had only just begun. Prompt: write the beginning of a horror story. It was a dark and stormy night, and the wind was howling through the trees like a banshee. The sky was an ominous gray, and the clouds hung low in the sky, leaving behind a heavy sense of dread. I was walking home after a late night out with friends, and I was starting to regret my decision to take the shortcut through the woods. The trees and bushes seemed to be swaying in tune with the wind, and I could hear faint whispers emanating from the darkness. I quickened my pace, but no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't seem to outrun the feeling of terror that had taken hold of me. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder and I gasped in fear. I spun around, ready to run, but what I saw made my heart freeze in my chest. There, standing in front of me, was a tall figure, shrouded in a long, dark cloak. Its eyes seemed to glow with an eerie light, and its face was hidden in the depths of its hood. It was then that I knew I was in trouble. Prompt: write the beginning of an action story. It was a seemingly ordinary day in the city. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and people were going about their lives like any other day. But little did they know, something sinister was lurking in the shadows. I had just finished my morning jog and was walking back to my apartment when a loud explosion suddenly rocked the city. The sound of sirens filled the air as I looked up to see a massive cloud of black smoke rising in the distance. My heart raced as I realized something big was happening. Without a second thought, I sprinted towards the source of the explosion. As I got closer, I noticed a group of armed men in black uniforms. I could tell from their determined expressions that they were up to no good. I quickly ducked behind a nearby parked car, trying my best to stay out of sight. Prompt: write the beginning of an adventure story. The sun was setting over the horizon, casting a beautiful orange glow on the sky. It was a perfect night for adventure, and that's exactly what 12-year-old Jimmy was out to do. He had been hearing stories from his friends about a mysterious cave in the woods near his house, and he was determined to find it. He had been searching for what felt like hours, but he was still determined not to give up. Finally, after much searching, he saw a small opening in the side of a hill. He quickly ran over and, sure enough, it was the entrance to the mysterious cave. Jimmy pulled out his flashlight and stepped inside. The entrance was smaller than he expected, but he could still make out a long, winding path leading deeper into the cave. He slowly began to make his way down the path, his curiosity growing with each step. What mysteries lay ahead? Prompt: write the beginning of a romance story. The sun was setting on the horizon, casting an orange glow across the sky. It was one of those days when the air was so still and so perfect that it felt like time had stopped. Samantha was walking along the beach, her feet sinking into the sand with each step. She had been coming to this beach for years, but today felt different. She couldn't help but feel like something special was in the air. As she walked, Samantha noticed a figure in the distance, standing along the shoreline. She squinted her eyes, trying to make out who it was, and suddenly her heart skipped a beat when she recognized him. It was Alex, the guy she had been crushing on for months. He was wearing a white shirt and shorts, with his hands in his pockets, looking out towards the sea. Samantha couldn't help but smile. She had no idea what he was doing here, but she was determined to find out. She cautiously made her way towards him, feeling a strange mix of excitement and nervousness in her chest. Prompt: write the beginning of a martial arts story. The sun had just set, and the streetlights illuminated the chilly night in the city. The distant sound of traffic could be heard in the darkness, but the street was empty. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the end of the street, walking silently towards the center of the road. It was a young man, wearing a traditional martial arts uniform and carrying a staff in his right hand. His face was calm and composed, betraying no emotion. As he continued walking, his footfalls echoed softly off the pavement. He seemed to be on a mission of some sort of martial arts training. He passed by the streetlights, his shadow trailing behind him. All of a sudden, a group of men appeared from the shadows of a nearby alley. The men were wearing hoods and had a menacing look in their eyes. They were obviously up to no good. The young man stopped in his tracks and stared at the group for a few moments. He then tightened his grip on the staff and prepared for a fight. He was ready for whatever these men had in store for him. Prompt: write the beginning of a comedy story. Once upon a time, there was a young man named Bob who had an extraordinary talent for finding himself in the most peculiar and hilarious situations. He was always so eager to try new things, and never shied away from a good challenge. One day, Bob decided to go on an adventure and explore the unknown, so he packed his bags and set off on a journey. Little did he know, this was the beginning of a wild and unpredictable adventure that would leave his friends and family laughing in disbelief. Like, subscribe and all that other YouTube stuff, but most importantly leave a comment with other interesting prompts for the AI or tags I can try for the image generation.